welcome back to my channel and welcome to another slow cooker video. So today I've got 4 really simple slow cooker recipes for you, and I think it's the perfect time of year to dig out your slow cooker or your crock pot and make some really nice family meals. Any meals that I've based these recipes upon will be linked in the description box, so if you want to go and check those out you can, but I do take you through step by step the ingredients and how much of each one to put in. If you do like this kind of content, I do have more slow cooker videos already filmed on this channel, so I'll leave those linked down below for you. And if you like what you see, I would love it if you would go and hit the subscribe button, make sure you turn on notifications, and let's go and have a look at what I made in my slow cooker. Okay, so for this recipe we're making a creamy sausage casserole, so not your usual gravy and carrot based casserole. This one involves cream of chicken or mushroom soup, some Philadelphia, some milk, some cheese, so it's completely different. I'm also using this kielbasa, which is basically a Polish sausage. If you can't get hold of this, or there aren't Polish supermarkets where you are, I actually got mine in Home Bargains. You could use like the Matteson smoked sausage instead, or any version of like a smoked sausage, but we've got this one. I'm going to use 400 grams, which is probably about 5 sausages, and I'm going to chop these up quite small. I've got a kilo of potatoes. I've just scrubbed them and washed them and just diced them. We've got 1 diced onion, 1 diced green pepper, 1 diced yellow pepper, and 2 cloves of garlic. You also need a tin of condensed soup. I'm using the mushroom. You could use chicken if you would prefer. I'm going to use 200 grams of cheddar cheese, 50 grams of Philadelphia, and enough milk to rinse out the tin of condensed soup, which is 295 grams. So just to fill that up and rinse that out, and then plenty of salt and pepper. So I'm going to put all this in the slow cooker. So the first thing I'm going to pop in is my potatoes. Now I'm going to add my peppers, garlic and onions. Right, next I'm going to pop in my sausage, which I've just chopped into small cubes. My cream of mushroom soup. Mine is a 6.5 litre slow cooker, in case anyone's wondering. I think this is one of the bigger ones. So now I'm just going to fill up my soup tin with some semi-skimmed milk. Perfect. And I'm just going to kind of wash around the sides to get all the last remaining soup. I've got 50 grams of Philadelphia cheese, and I'm going to put in about half of the cheddar, so probably about 100 grams. The rest is going to go over the top. And I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of black pepper. And then I'm just going to mix this all together. When we taste it, when it's cooked, we can always decide whether to add any more seasonings or not, because you can always put more in, but you obviously can't take any out. So I'm just going to keep mixing this until everything's combined. Right, so everything is mixed together and I've pushed it all down as much as I can. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to top it with the remaining cheese, and I'm going to cook it on low for 6 hours. You could add any other vegetables into this. You could put broccoli, or you could add some red pepper flakes, maybe some sweet corn, but we've gone with peppers today. It smells really good. The smoked sausage is really strong. So I've got my cheese on top. Now I'm just going to pop the lid on and pop it on low for 6 hours. Right, so it is now 6 hours later. Our sausage casserole is done. The only thing I have done is added a little bit of a corn flour slurry, which is basically 2 teaspoons of corn flour and about 2 teaspoons of water, and then I let it sit for another 10 minutes. It's just thickened it up really nicely. So here we are, all plated up, and it smells really good. I'm really looking forward to tucking in. You can always add some more salt and pepper. You could put some grated cheese on if you wanted. We're just serving ours with some buttered tiger bread. Right, so for this recipe I'm actually going to be making a meatloaf in the slow cooker. So what you're going to need for this is about 150 grams of breadcrumbs. I've actually used 140 grams because it's 3 slices of bread, and I'm not going to tear up another piece just for the extra 10 grams. So I've got those. I've just blitzed that up in my blender. 2 eggs, 1 kilo of mince. I've used the 10% fat so it doesn't dry out too much, because the 5% might make it a little bit tough. I'm going to use the equivalent of 1 clove of chopped garlic. I'm going to use a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper, about 50 ml of ketchup, and 100 ml of milk. So in here I've got a teaspoon of thyme and a teaspoon of oregano. So what I'm going to do now is the messy part and mix all the ingredients I've just said together in here. So now our meatloaf is mixed all together. What I'm going to do is just pop some foil on the inside of my slow cooker, and then you're going to form your meatloaf into a loaf, basically. So you don't want to handle your meatloaf too much, because if you squash it down it will become dry. So we're just going to gently form it into a loaf shape or slow cooker shape, it doesn't really matter. You're going to slice it up at the end. And what I'm going to do now is pop my lid on, and I'm going to put this on low for 6 hours. If you want to cook it on high, then you can pop it on for 3 hours. And then towards the end of the cooking time, we're going to make a ketchup and brown sugar glaze that goes over the top. And then we're going to pop it under the grill just until it goes nice and bubbly. So I'm just making the glaze to go on top of the meatloaf, and in here I've got 150 grams of brown sugar, 150 ml of ketchup, and a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And then I'm just going to mix this around, and then once our meatloaf's done, I'm going to take it out, spread this on the top, and then we're just going to pop it under the grill to get it nice and sticky. Right, so now our meatloaf is out of the slow cooker. What I'm going to do is get my sauce that I made earlier, and I'm going to pour it over the top. Then I'm going to put it under the grill for probably 15 minutes, maybe 20. Just when it goes brown and starts to get thicker and sticky, that's when I'm going to take it out. So it makes quite a lot of sauce, but you really do want to add most of it, because this is what makes it really nice flavour. So I've put it on some foil just to catch the rest of it, and then it will kind of form a little river around it. And the rest of the sauce you can use to dip your roast potatoes or your mash, or pour it over as a gravy. So I'm going to pop that under the grill for about 15 minutes. Alright, so we are out of the oven, and we've got a nice sticky crust on the top. So I did baste it after about 5 minutes. So now I'm just going to cut it into slices, and we're having ours with some roast potatoes and some garden peas. You can see it's really tender inside, it hasn't dried out at all. We've got the nice sticky crust on the outside. Yeah, it stayed nice and moist. Sometimes things like this can dry out, but if you do it on low for 6 hours and then you baste it when you've put your sauce on the top, it just stays really nice. So what I'm going to do now is dish this up with some roast potatoes and peas. So here we are plated up. I've just done it with some garden peas and some roast potatoes, and I've put some of the extra sauce on the meatloaf, and that's it, slow cooker meatloaf. Right, so for my next recipe I'm going to make something called Campfire Stew. So this is basically like a gammon and bean dish. So what I've got is one small smoked gammon joint I got in Lidl. This is 1.3 kilos, and I'm just going to remove this part of the fat. There's not very much on it at all, but I'm going to take that off. You're going to need 3 cloves of chopped garlic. I always use the frozen one, it's just so much easier. I've got 1 red and 1 green pepper. I've got a massive red pepper and a tiny green one. 1 tin of tomatoes, 2 tins of baked beans. We're going to need 6 tablespoons of tomato puree. I'm going to be using a beef stock pot. If you've got the ham ones, you could use a ham one instead, but I find this will be fine. I'm going to put 500 grams of potatoes, 1 chopped onion, some smoked paprika, and then just some chilli powder. You can use like ordinary chilli powder. This is a Trader Joe's one, but just normal chilli powder is fine. And as I made the sausage casserole and I had 2 of the kielbasa left, which is like the smoked Polish sausage, I'm actually going to use those 2 in it as well. This isn't necessary, but if you wanted to, you could buy smoked sausage and pop it in as well. I'm just using them up because I've got nothing else to do with them, so they're going to go in as well. Basically, I'm just going to chop all this, open all the tins and pop it all in the slow cooker, but I'll show you it as I go. Right, so first things first, I'm going to put my potatoes in. I've just scrubbed them and washed them and then diced them. I'm not going to bother peeling them, so they can go in first. Then I've got my chopped red pepper, my chopped green pepper and 1 chopped onion. Right, next I'm going to put my tin of chopped tomatoes, 2 tins of baked beans, 1 stock pot. Like I said, you could use any one for this, chicken, vegetable, you could use beef, or you can get ham ones as well. Around 3 cloves of garlic, so I'd say it's 1, 2, 3. 6 tablespoons of tomato puree. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika. I'm going to put 1 tablespoon of this chili seasoning. Obviously, if you're using chili powder, it depends how hot you like it. You could start off with a teaspoon and then you can always add some more heat afterwards. I think I'm just going to take this lid off. This isn't very hot at all, so I'm going to put a whole tablespoon. Like I said, just err on the side of caution. Maybe add a teaspoon if you're using chili powder, and then taste it when everything's cooked through. You can always add more, but I wouldn't want you to be burning your mouth. On top of this, I'm going to pop my chopped sausage, and then I'm going to give this all a good stir. And I'm not going to add any salt or pepper because you've got your stock, which is quite salty, the stock pot. And then you've got your smoked paprika and things as well, and your chili powder. So, like I said, you can always season it to taste. I'm going to give that a good mix around. So we're going to nestle our gammon joint in amongst this and like make a little space for it. And then what I'm going to do is put it on low for 6 hours, or until your potatoes are soft, because that's the bit that really needs cooking the most. Obviously the gammon will cook, but make sure your potatoes are soft. And then we're going to take the gammon out and shred it, and then we're going to pop it back in. So I'm just going to make like a little kind of a well. I've removed the majority of visible fat from my gammon, and I'm just going to kind of poke it down in there. It doesn't have to be fully covered, but just so that it gets some of the flavour in it. And then we can just bring some of this up around the edges. If you put your gammon joint in first, which a lot of you are probably thinking, well, why didn't you just do that first? It's harder to mix up all your ingredients, so I find it easier this way. And then that's it. I'm going to put my lid on, put it on low for 6 hours, and then see how we are. So my stew's been on for about 6 hours now, and it's bubbling away nice. It's made the house smell really nice. What I'm going to do now is take my gammon joint out and shred it up, give all this a good stir, and then pop it back in just for a couple of minutes while I prepare our part-baked rolls that we're having with it. Right, so I've shredded and chopped my gammon and I've popped it back in, and it was looking quite liquidy, and now you put your gammon back in, the gammon sort of soaks up all the juices. So I'm going to leave this for about 10 to 12 minutes now. I'm going to leave this with the lid off, pop the bread in the oven, and then I'll show you it when I've put it in bowls. Right, so here we are, just plated up, and I'm serving it with some of these part-baked rolls with some butter in, so nice freshly warm out of the oven. It smells amazing. Like I said, the whole house really smells of like a nice gammon, like smoky smell. So this is my version of campfire stew. Right, so for my next slow cooker dish, what I'm going to do is actually cook a whole chicken in here. When the chicken's cooked, I'm actually going to use it for 2 different dishes. One is like a chicken pot pie, and the other one I'm just going to do some chicken and avocado sandwiches with like the leftover meat. In my slow cooker, I've put a couple of carrots. I've just scrubbed them. I tend not to peel things if I can get away with it, because why would you? So I've scrubbed the carrots, washed them and chopped them. I've also got 2 leeks that needed using up, so I've chopped those and popped them in, and a big chunk, you can see it there, of frozen garlic. I'd say that's probably about 2 cloves. What I'm going to do is just put my chicken straight in on the top. Your veg forms a bit of a trivet, like something for the chicken to sit on, so it's not sitting right on the bottom of the slow cooker. You don't necessarily need it. Sometimes if I don't put veg in, I'll put some little balls of foil just so the chicken doesn't kind of boil in its own juices. It's better if it sits up off the bottom. I'm not going to add any liquid at all, because the chicken will be full of moisture, which will all come out during cooking, and then those lovely vegetables at the bottom are going to make up part of my chicken pot pie. So I'm going to absolutely smother it with salt and pepper, because the liquid is going to make the stock, which is also going to be part of the pie. So what I'm going to do is, when the chicken's cooked today, I'm going to take it out and let it cool, and then I'm going to strain the juices, pop them in a jug in the fridge, and then tomorrow there will be a layer of fat across the top of the jug, and I can just scrape that off, discard it, and you're left with a really nice chicken stock ready to make the pie. Just going to cover the chicken. Lots and lots of pepper, because this is going to flavour your stock. And then I'm also going to cover it in salt. And I'm going to cook it for 6 hours. I feel like everything I've said in this video is 6 hours. That's kind of like my benchmark. I generally think that if you put things on slow, potatoes will soften in 6 hours, meats will generally be cooked, that stews will be tender, that kind of thing. So when it's on low, I always start with 6 hours, because you can always do it a little bit longer. I know that some recipes do say you can put it on in the morning and go out to work, leave it 10 or 12 hours, which you can, but there's no need to leave it on if you don't have to. I did also get a question from someone in my last slow cooker video saying, Is it not expensive to have it running for 6 or 8 hours a day? A slow cooker uses the same amount of electricity as a light bulb. They're very, very low wattage, and that's why they can stay on for so long, and it is very economical. It's just like leaving your light on all day. So I'm going to cook the chicken now, and I will show you all the next steps. I'm also going to show you making the pie and how I do the stock and things as well, just in case you're interested, and the finished pie. I think I'm going to serve it with mashed potato and either broccoli or sweet corn, but we'll get to that part after I've cooked this. So my chicken has been in for exactly 6 hours now, and as you can see there is a lot of liquid that's come out of the chicken itself. So what I'm going to do now is remove it and pop it to one side, and then I'm going to strain the juices into a jug, let that cool, and that's going to go in the fridge. The chicken obviously is going to go in the fridge, and the vegetables are going to go in the fridge, and then tomorrow I'm going to remove the fat from the liquid and we're going to make a chicken pot pie. So the chicken was so tender that it actually fell apart as I took it out. The legs fell off, the wings fell off. It's that tender, it just falls apart. And then in here we've got our beautiful chicken stock, and we've got our leeks and carrots that we can also save. Right, so it's the next day now, and here is my stock. It's not the most appetizing looking thing at the moment, but you can see that there's quite a visible layer of fat that you can just get rid of. So what I'm going to do is scrape all that off and get rid of it. And then you are left with a really nice, thick and rich sort of jelly stock. You can see underneath there, it's really full of flavour. So I'm going to do that now with 2 hands. Right, so in here I've got the vegetables from yesterday, and I've also shredded up about half of my chicken. I'm just going to see if that's enough once I lay it in my baking dish. I've also added a tin of this condensed mushroom soup. Obviously you could use chicken if you wanted to, but that's what I've got in, so that's what I'm using. And I'm also going to add a tin of these baby peas and carrots. I would add sweet corn, but one of my boys just cannot stomach it at all, and I don't usually abide by the whole fussiness, but if they really can't stomach it, then I'm not going to put it in. So I'm just going to mix this around. So I'm going to add a little bit of my stock into here, probably about half a tin's worth. It is sort of jellified at the moment, but it will go liquid. And then I'm also going to add half a tin of semi-skimmed milk. And then I'm going to mix it through and see what consistency that is. I'm not going to add any salt because the soup's quite salty, and we also had salt on the chicken, so the stock will have salt in. And then if it's a desired consistency, I'm going to lay it in my baking dish, which I'll show you next. So I've washed my tin round with semi-skimmed milk. I'm going to add that in, mix this together, and then I've got ready rolled pastry, so I'm just going to get this nice and combined first. Right, so I've got my pie tin, and I'm going to put my filling into it. I'm quite happy with the consistency. I don't want it too runny. It can make your pastry go soggy, and it will probably release some moisture as it cooks a little bit as well with the steam and everything. And then I've got at least half the chicken left over, so I can make the chicken and avocado sandwiches. We can make some chicken pasta with mayo and things for lunches. I've got my filling in. All I'm going to do now is get my cheese pastry. And I believe that that will just cover the entire pie. I'm just going to prick it with a fork, pop it in the oven, and I think it's going to take around 25 minutes to cook. So I will show you it once I've rolled it out. And the rest of the stock I've just popped in a freezer bag, and I'm going to pop it in the freezer, label it, and this can be used for any soups or stews or anything else that needs a chicken stock. So pie's been in the oven probably about 35 minutes, just until it's gone nice and crispy. I'll show you it once I've cut it open. So there we are, I've just taken one slice out, so I thought I'd show you the inside. So it looks really nice, and I'll just show you a bit on the plate. I really hope it's given you some inspiration on what to make in your slow cooker, because I know that I'm always looking for different ideas, so I do love these kind of videos. If you did enjoy it, I would really appreciate you just taking 2 seconds to go and leave a thumbs up. It really does let me know that you've liked the video, and it also helps to promote my channel. And like I said before, I'd love to have you subscribe. I do a lot of hauls, lifestyle videos, food content on this channel, so if that's your kind of thing, then please stick around, and I will be back really soon with another video. Take care, guys.
This is what we waited for.